Oh, welcome to the Good Brand Podcast. My name is Stuart Steele. I am joined, as ever, by Chris Lumsden. Hi. Julie Murdoch.
Hello.
And we work for Good, a brand consultancy based in the United Kingdom, but work globally. And today we are having a conversation with Chris. And Chris has got, it's something that we've talked about for a long period of time, and Chris has finally done it. Chris has... Well, we've released something.
Chris, what have you done?
What did the world you shared it with the world today? What did you share?
A report, Stuart. I thought what we're rather grandly calling an industry report called Brand Dynamics in B2B Tech, the Current Landscape.
So just go into a little bit. So what is this report? What does it kind of cover?
It covers, I would describe it as a collection of all of our kind of key learnings and thoughts around the challenges and issues around that we see in B2B tech.
Right.
And, some thoughts on how we solve those problems. It's been banging around in our heads for a while because, in this space that we've been working in for a while, we see the same thing again and again, right?
Right.
And it felt sensible to try and pool all of that stuff together to create a document or a compendium of
Compendium.
of
setting the bar high,
yeah, compendiums around outlining a lot of the challenges that we see, and some of the pitfalls and the many we see many clients making. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So when you're you don't need to, because obviously we want people to read the report, but just give us a flavour of, for example, one of the areas that you cover off in the report as a kind of example of
what they can expect.
What can be expected?
So in the report, I think there's 6 or 7 areas, or 8 areas that I say, look, here are key things that we see that are impacting the performance of B2B tech brands. Well, there are 2 that I think are worth mentioning.
Yep.
The first one is just that it's quite a generalized observation that many B2B tech brands don't see brand as a business critical thing at all. In fact, they don't really care about it at all. They just think it works in isolation. And it's about colors and logos. And we've made this point before, but I think it's the single biggest challenge, trying to get organizations to take it seriously. I mean, it's not our job to make them take it seriously, but if they do want to take it seriously, that we can help them. But I think that's one of the biggest challenges because it plays into the last point, I think, which is equally kind of relevant, which is about the fact that most of the creative is really, really dull. And because if you don't take the brand seriously, then your output's going to be really dull. And I talk about them being, they rely on a kind of tired set of visual metaphors to communicate what they do, things like, networks and connectedness, and they have these very bold statements about bringing tomorrow's future here today and all that stuff that we talk about. But equally that we lean on some other people's stuff as well, talking about, what role creativity has in affecting successful brands, successful businesses. And it just says that, there's a stat in here from Peter Field that says 77% of B2B ads score just 1 star out of 5 in effectiveness, which underscores the kind of crisis in B2B branding and advertising. So, so those 2 points, I suppose, in combination, in concert, add up to the fact that this sector doesn't take it seriously enough, and it's missing out.
I think that, and you talk about, I know we're not going to talk about, but you kind of, in the overview section, you sort of split out the sort of 3 different types of B2B tech organizations. And we kind of have, I guess, a disproportionate amount of experience in that kind of B2B tech product innovator space. And I think as you've kind of, when you talk about, the characteristics of those companies, and B2B tech in general, I guess, and from our experience, are very product driven, engineering led. And I think that, your first point about not taking brand seriously is very much related, is kind of built from that, because we had Ryan Schultz, didn't we, a client on the podcast a few months back, talking about how excited these businesses get talking about the technology, and it's almost like they kind of bypass brand and go straight to talking about the tech and how smart it is, and forget the kind of Mark Ritson Salius point around, but do they know you, and do they know what they know you for, first
Mhm.
off, and then you can get into talking about it. So it's, I think it's like you say, it's interesting that you see this consistently in that kind of bypassing.
But we do, don't we? We see it all the time. It's the same. It's the same kind of issues that are raised, and I think it's really frustrating because because we see it all the time, and clients in their lifetimes probably don't see it as often because we're doing it all the time. And so you recognize it quickly and you can diagnose it quickly, and it's very frustrating that you're thinking, well, why can't you get this right? But I suppose the observation is that it's easy in theory. That's the difference between theory and practice, isn't it? Because you never come at this from the start. You're always jumping in the middle at some point, and there's reasons why things can't be done. So, but it's not difficult at all. I mean, it's very far from difficult. It's very straightforward. But it's about trying to spin as many plates as you can and create and solve as many of these challenges as you can. Sometimes it's not as simple as just wiping the slate clean and starting from scratch.
I do think, though, that you can kind of understand where that ambivalence comes from, because if you look at the most successful business in the world just now, Nvidia, and so on one hand, if you're looking at it naively, you go, well, GPUs, the product is what's driving that market cap, and you can run with it, and it's like the fact that there's other things, but again, Nvidia have been. It's the combination of having a great product, and Nvidia have been branding for years. I mean, they've not necessarily been out there. It was a very niche market. It was to gamers around video game cards, and that's the kind of main thing they did. And they did a lot of branding to that group because it was trying to create the values of Nvidia about gaming, high performance, and everything else with their product to kind of make that align. So it's always, I think it's always interesting. I can see why people.
Yeah, but I think that example. Sorry, I mean, Nvidia is has been in the right place at the right time and is surfing a huge wave that you can't sit around and wait for that. And they're exceptional, and it's unbelievable. Assume you are not Nvidia. Assume that's not going to happen to you. The vast majority of brands in this B2B tech space, especially in that sort of product innovator stuff, and even that industrial manufacturer space, they're going to have to get. They're going to have to.
I would disagree a little bit with that, because I mean, while I agree the right place, right time, their branding beforehand around performance to a certain sector did help them. And did help them capitalize on that market, but you don't think look at it fresh.
The market dynamics in that space changed everything, and the again, I just go back to the point of saying that as a brand, a strategy of sitting, waiting, and hoping that the market's going to, the gods are going to align, and you're going to surf a wave to global domination. That's not going to happen.
No, but the brand did help.
But it doesn't need to necessarily be global domination. But kind of elevate your success, even if it's not in that extreme example. I think, and the frustration we've seen or had. And we had this conversation literally this morning about when you combine sort of product launch, bringing new products to market in the B2B tech space, or when we are involved in working on product launches in the B2B tech space, and then you end up trying to do a brand and a product job in one. And it's like, the product, even where you've got a great product, you're still trying to underpin it with the fact that you can trust it and believe it because those brand value, because that brand value is there, that brand salience is there. And so you end up trying to do the two things in the one campaign, and both of them probably get compromised. I get, if you then say, well, why is the value of brand underappreciated in that, and it, does it come back to how difficult it is to measure the impact? It's like if a product's good, it sells. How much more have you sold because the brand is structured? I mean, it's that kind of ability to.
I think the thrust behind the whole thing is just to try and pool all our knowledge and demonstrate, I guess some sort of domain expertise, and we've seen it before, but it's to try and stress the fact that the businesses that do begin to see brand as a sort of strategic asset
do better.
Do better.
Yeah.
Do better. Undoubtedly.
And again, that's why I think the video got to the top, because I think they were already positioned as performance as good as everything else, and then
the launch on the back of that.
And the market then kind of they capitalised on that, and the brand helped. So, who do you think should be downloading this report? Who should be reading this?
I'd say people that are in the B2B tech space, and they don't necessarily need to be in marketing because it's very accessible. I think senior leaders, decision makers, people that already are at a point where they understand that they maybe or suspect that they need to do something with their brand. As I said before, our job isn't to convince people who don't think they need to do something with their brand that they need to, because we'll never do that. But if there are people in that space, then I think it might be quite interesting for them to take a whirl through it and see if they recognize themselves in any of the observations.
Yeah, I think it's the kind of people who go, wait a minute, why is our business not? We do have a great product. Why is it not selling? Why are people not getting it? I think that if you're feeling a sense of stagnation, I think it might help give you another way to approach solving that to some degree.
Yeah, and it's not to criticize them from being, as I said earlier, you do go, why is this so difficult? When you get involved in these businesses, you understand that, for all sorts of reasons, politics being one of them, that things are just the way they are because they are. And either we accept that and start planning or start making some decisions around how we can improve things without going through this kind of linear progressive process, which is unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
I think the other, and I can't remember if you talk about it specifically in here, but the other thing in terms of who this is of interest to, it's not, very rarely is the work that we're involved in a start from scratch exercise.
Mm-hmm.
It's even if you're ticking along doing all right, there's an opportunity. Most of the work we're doing is around sort of refining and fine tuning and then elevating the standard of comms and things like that. So it's not a throw the baby out with the bathwater and tear everything up. We're generally working with something that's already there to try and move on.
Yeah. And in isolation, all of these things, we've probably done a podcast on each of them, from, integrating acquisitions and complex product portfolios or
Product positioning.
Yeah, issues about purpose. All of the greatest hits.
I think the other I don't know, maybe this isn't one for today's podcast specifically, but just because it's quite front of mind, we're talking about it a lot at the moment. Something we're doing more and more around, or have done over the last couple of years, is the product positioning piece, which is obviously very much tethered to the brand thing, but and driven and comes from is based on the same principles, but that kind of positioning around moving on from features and benefits and under unpacking the value and what problem you're solving and making money, saving money, etc. It's becoming more and more important in the work that we're doing, particularly in this space where, again, engineering-led, technology-led conversations tend to bleed into marketing comms rather than...
Yeah, I think it's all about that. I think that, and I'd like the way that you set that out. Somebody that does a lot of it in the document, just outlining the positioning, the why, the process around it. And as Julie says, we're doing a lot more of it because I think in the last few years, businesses have had to learn how to sell harder than they've ever done before. The buying journeys are more complicated. There's competition is getting smarter, brighter, and everything else you've kind of got to there. So I think that's definitely a thing. I think the way you laid that out is very
well.
Very
and it's about, I suppose it's about allying the key and the value message that the brand or the product delivers to the customer with the kind of, the brand foundations. And the two things are slightly different strands, but they regress, if you like, back to the same place. Yeah, and I think positioning's a product positioning, not positioning in a marketplace, but product positioning and being able to articulate value is really closely allied to the work that we do. So it is. I think it's good that we're doing more of that stuff.
Yeah, it's good.
It's more end to end.
Yeah. So Chris, where you sold me, I want it. Where did I get it?
Well, there's a link in the podcast, and it's also on the website.
I fired a wee thing in the show notes, ladies and gentlemen, for a direct download. You don't need to wait. Just open your podcast, go to the show notes, and then...
In fact, do not wait.
Do not wait. Run.
It's... Listen, we're giving it a huge build-up. It's a document.
It's good. I think it's good. And also this, we don't... as you know, the podcast, I don't like talking about things that we do, but I think this breaks... I think this is the first time we've done about.
It's the first time we've done. Yeah, it's the first time we've consolidated.
I was going to say a consolidation of a lot of these things that we've spoken about and touched on and written about in isolation, just bringing that under one umbrella to kind of, and then presenting as sort of that. It's what, 8 pages. It's a nice, easy read.
It's 15 pages.
Oh, is it? Oh,
yeah.
Right. Maybe 8.
But it felt like
spreads.
it. That's how good it was. It felt like 8 pages. That's how concise it was.
So yeah, we might do more. It depends. I think it's just useful to as I say, pull all that information so that we can showcase the fact that we know we've done this before and we know what we're doing.
Yeah, and I think there's good practical. It's not just theory. There's some nice advice in there as well about what to do, even if you don't want to phone us. You can
just read it.
Just read it.
Might learn something.
You might not, but you probably will. You probably will.
Undoubtedly.
Yeah. All right.
Grant.
Right. Watch the
Thank
road.
you
Fish,
all.
boys,
Bye
bye.
bye bye.